Welcome, folks. My name is Charles Parrish, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for a webinar on how to stop wasting your biggest resource in the greenhouse. Before I introduce Ubiquity and UbiGrow, I want to encourage all of our attendees to post any and all questions you might have throughout the webinar in the chat. And at the end of the webinar, I'll do my best to get all those questions answered. So again, thank you all for being here. And we will proceed. So we'll give you first a little bit of background on Ubiquity, the company. So Ubiquity is an advanced materials company based in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And it's a platform tech company using a proprietary formulation of nanoparticles known as quantum dots. And these quantum dots are used to power product innovations in agriculture, clean energy, and security. So Ubiquity is short for ubiquitous quantum dots, based on our non-toxic formula that's more applicable in a lot of domains. And Ubiquity is a startup spun out of Los Alamos National Lab here in 2014 by founder and CEO, Dr. Hunter McDaniel. And today the company employs 25 full-time employees with expertise spanning material science, chemistry, engineering, agriculture, and business management. And today we're going to learn about the company's innovative greenhouse spectrum control product known as UbiGrow. And UbiGrow is a layer of light that helps plants get more from the sun, and it uses fluorescence to create an optimal greenhouse spectrum for crops. Speaking with us today are Dr. Damon Hebert, Director of Agriculture Research, and Eric Moody, Director of Sales. So Damon and Eric, thank you both for being here with us today. And with that, I'll let you all take it away.
Thanks, Charles. Hey, folks, thanks for joining. I'm Damon Hebert. I'm the Director of Agriculture Research with Ubiquity. I have a background in cannabis. I was one of the co-founders of Dr. Jolly's Cannabis in Bend, Oregon. Operated that business for over 5 years. I was fully integrated. We did extraction, retail, and 10,000 square foot of indoor grow. My role with Ubiquity is I direct the pilot programs. So I help deploy our luminescent film in various pilot sites and help growers understand what the spectrum control is doing for their crops. So happy to be here, and I'll be covering some pilots later on after Eric introduces the technology.
Thanks, Damon. So my name is Eric Moody. I'm the Director of Sales here at UbiGrow and Ubiquity. I came to UbiGrow just this past year, started with them this past April, really excited about the technology. Before UbiGrow, I was with PL Light Systems for 7 years. So fun time there while cannabis was really taking off in the West and being part of that growth. It was really fun for me to be involved with so many growers, from indoor growers to greenhouse growers and whole 9 yards. So definitely looking forward to this new venture with UbiGrow, and really excited about this technology and excited to share it with all of you. When I'm not in a greenhouse floating above a field of cannabis like in that picture there, I also enjoy coaching lacrosse. I've got 2 boys, coach them in lacrosse, high school and youth lacrosse. And we live in beautiful Oregon where the mountain biking is great. So when I'm not on a lacrosse field, I'm definitely out with my boys on their mountain bikes. But anyway, let's get started if we can. So today we're going to cover a couple different things. We're going to talk a little bit about why greenhouses, and why greenhouses are so popular today. We're going to talk a little bit about light quality. We know light quantity is important, but we're going to talk about quality today and how we can improve on our biggest natural resource, sunlight. We're going to share a little research with you that has been proven to show that obviously that more red light is better for flowering. Probably not as much blue as you think you need for flowering. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and also why it's important to retain green light in our light spectrum. We'll share a couple different spectral control options that are available today in greenhouses. And then obviously we'll talk about our solution, our quantum dot retrofit layers, or our layer of light. And at the end, we'll leave you a quick little offer how to get in touch with us. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to be typing those questions into the chat now, or anytime you think of a question during this webinar, and we'll get to them at the end of the call or at another webinar. So controlled environment agriculture, why greenhouses? Greenhouse cultivation has been getting more and more popular as food security, land use efficiency, and water use efficiency become a more impactful choice for cultivation methods. Greenhouses allow control over grow conditions while still making use of our one free biggest resource, the sun. They produce 20 to 50 times more yield per acre than conventional field agriculture, while using 10% as much water. And as fires and drought are impacting farming across the globe, greenhouses represent a hedge against climate change. There's just a news article just yesterday I saw about California, who produces almost a third of our total vegetables right now, and they're in the midst of a 20-year drought. So one of the reasons to really push greenhouses is just for that reason, to get it local and produce food locally. So greenhouses are also able to produce crops year-round, supplementing conventional agriculture and providing local crop production without the excess transportation costs. And for cannabis too, growers are finding that greenhouse cultivation offers the best combination of a low cost and high quality due to the use of free sunlight rather than electrical lights as a sole source lighting. While many aspects of greenhouse cultivation have been optimized, such as nutrients and pest control and harvest techniques, and even light quantity, the light quality, or the color spectrum of light, still remains a path for optimization in the greenhouse. And that's why we're here, to help growers stop wasting their solar resource and make the most efficient use of it. So the spectral effects on photosynthesis and plant morphology have been studied for over 70 years now. And back in the early 70s, McCree and others found that the quantum yield, or photosynthetic efficiency, of red light photons, 600 to 700 nanometers, was about 25% greater than blue light photons in that 400 to 500 nanometer range, and about 5% greater than green photons, 500 to 600 nanometer. And this holds true today, and is especially so for cannabis. The prevailing artificial lighting technique for cannabis has been to use high pressure sodium, or HPS lighting, in the flower stage, which is high in red and contains a very small, maybe 4 to 8% of blue light, while using a CMH, or ceramic metal halide lighting, in the veg stage, which is much higher in blue, around 30%. We have seen a push in the past few years to include a bit more blue light in flower as well. But at what point is there a saturation of that certain spectrum of light? And recent studies now indicate that even far red photons, just outside of that PAR range of 4 to 700 nanometers, the far red at 700 to 750 nanometer are equally efficient at driving photosynthesis when coupled with the shorter wavelengths. Far red photons preferentially excite photosystem 1 and allow for more efficient photosynthesis. And to explain that a little more, there are two biomechanical mechanisms, or photosystems, in plants by which chlorophyll absorbs light energy for photosynthesis. We know that photosystem 1 absorbs wavelengths of light greater than about 600 nanometers. So 600 nanometers is on that top end of PAR. So what we're realizing is photosystem 1 really absorbs all the way out towards 750 nanometers. More recently, LEDs have allowed the study of light recipes using specific wavelengths. A very impactful study by Bruce Bugby's group out of Utah State was published earlier this year on the effects of blue light content on yields and potency in medical cannabis. They studied 5 spectra of varying blue content, shown here on the left, and found a consistent linear decrease in yield as the fraction of blue photons increased from 4 to 20%. There was no effect of spectral quality on CBD or THC concentration. Additionally, multiple studies have shown a reduction in leaf area and dry mass gain with an increase in blue photon fraction from 5 to 30%. And another study supported significant increases in flower yield among plants of high THC cannabis grown under 8% blue HPS compared to 2 LED fixtures with 14 and 24% blue. This clearly shows that while some blue light is definitely needed for optimum CBD and THC levels, but once your percentage of blue light is above that 5 to 8%, you are now wasting this portion of your light spectrum on your crop, when you could be focusing this light energy to a more efficient wavelength for photosynthesis. This is a very important discovery that not only proves our technology, but is something that all growers should consider when looking into supplemental lighting as well, especially LEDs. At what point are you throwing money away on the wrong spectrum? We've We've also seen effects of a redder spectrum on potency. In one study, plexiglass filters were used to provide monochromatic light to greenhouse-grown hemp. It was found that leaves of plants grown under a red filter contain 3 times higher cannabinoid concentration than plants grown under blue and green filters. This is something that's currently being studied more as well. Spectrum can have other effects on plants besides just driving photosynthesis. Plant morphology is also affected by light color, as plants will generally stretch under a high red spectrum and will remain compact under a high blue spectrum. So balance is needed for that proper morphology. And because red photons are abruptly absorbed in canopies, the presence of far red light triggers a shade avoidance response in plants, altering plant morphology by increasing stem elongation, and leaf expansion, which typically increases radiation capture and thus yield. Finally, colors of light are absorbed at different rates in canopies and plant tissue. Using chlorophyll fluorescence imaging of leaf cross-sections, seen here on the right, the image on the right there, light absorption profiles have been measured in leaves, and we see here that green light penetrates deep into the plant tissues. Because green light is the most effective color for green plants, it also penetrates deep into dense canopies and provides a more even light distribution. Therefore, despite its lower photosynthetic efficiency, green light is important to retain in a spectrum for cannabis and any dense canopy crop for that matter. So from this research, what is the ideal spectrum for the flowering stage of cannabis? Cannabis will obviously grow its best when it's provided a high DLI of 35 to 40 moles per day over the photo period of 12 hours of a heavy red, orange, and far red content spectrum. These colors will drive photosynthesis and shade avoidance, but we also want to include a small but non-zero blue content to maintain morphology and retain green light to drive photosynthesis in dense canopies. It turns out that sunlight contains more blue light than is actually needed for flowering cannabis by a factor of almost 5. Sunlight typically has around 30% total blue spectrum. Yet we just learned that we only need 5 to 8% of our total light spectrum to be blue. This is where we can improve the quality of light from the sun. Thank you, Damon. So what options exist to efficiently control light quality in greenhouse? Supplemental lighting can augment the solar spectrum to some degree, but the capital and operational expenses can be limiting, and they reduce efficiency and profitability. In addition, in a greenhouse, the baseline spectrum will still be dominated by sunlight. It's why we choose to grow in a greenhouse. There's spectral selective or filtering technologies, such as seasonal spray-on coatings and colored nettings that can alter the color inside a greenhouse, but they don't maintain a high light intensity, as they only serve as a filter to certain parts of the light spectrum, blocking some and allowing others to pass. With a crop like cannabis and most fruit-bearing crops, we want to maintain a high light level from our free resources possible. Finally, organic luminescent dyes convert light to red, they convert green light to red, actually resulting in a magenta color. And while this down conversion of light can maintain a high intensity, the removal of green light in favor of red is not ideal. Crop yield improvements have not been shown with this technology, and some dye technologies have had low lifetimes in real greenhouse settings. Instead, we need a durable material that converts underutilized blue and UV light to the orange, red, and far red, which is needed, and that is what we've developed here at UBgrow. An emerging choice for light manipulation is quantum dots. Quantum dots are tiny nanoparticles that enable the efficient manipulation of color and light. They are luminescent and efficiently down convert short wavelengths, so toward your blue and UV spectrum, to long wavelengths, which is toward your orange and red spectrum. Through quantum dots, we're able to tune colors. And while this technology has been around for a while and used in enhancing colors in digital screens for TVs and other devices, here at UBgrow, we are finding new areas where this technology can help in agriculture to increase sustainability for plant production. Quantum dots can be incorporated into 2D layers or films to manipulate sunlight entering the greenhouse. Today, we will be sharing the first set of trials of quantum dot greenhouse retrofit layers installed over commercial cannabis canopies. The layers used here contain copper indium sulfide quantum dots. The layers are suspended underneath existing greenhouse facades and above plants, as shown here on the figure on the left. You can see how the UV Grow film is used underneath the existing greenhouse covering and serves as another layer of light that can work with supplemental lighting or can work on its own to boost growth. It is important to note that our layer of light cannot replace supplemental lighting when supplemental lighting is used to extend daylight. We can extend daylight, but it should be an added source to optimize sunlight. Another great characteristic of the UV Grow layer of light is its ability to diffuse light. Light diffusion is very important in keeping lighting uniform on your canopy and for penetrating deep into a dense canopy. This is the same thing that a dimpled reflector of an HID fixture will do. Basically, when light shines through the quantum dots in UV Grow, the photons are dispersed in many directions instead of just falling straight down. You can see this in your shadow. A light source with good diffusion makes blurry shadows. This is a great advantage to your crop, as it is photons bouncing all around that cause this. When these photons are bouncing around in multiple directions, they're digging themselves deeper and deeper into your canopy and not just falling straight down on the top leaves alone. This is a topic we'll be discussing more in the future with a couple blogs and webinars to come as well. So this figure here on the right shows the spectral conversion of quantum dots, absorbing about half of the UV and a quarter of the blue light. You can see that on the very bottom right, you can see the percentages of UV light that are absorbed and blue light that are absorbed, with the emission of this light centered at 600 nanometers in the orange and red. And this conversion also extends into the far red between 700 and 750. It's important to note here that UV Grow is not a filter. It's a luminescent material that converts rather than blocks the blue and UV light. It is actually changing that shorter wavelength of blue and UV towards 600 to 750 nanometers. When you look at our film under just a UV light, it actually glows a very bright orange color. But to our naked eye, this is sometimes hard to see under direct sunlight. But we are optimizing the spectrum for plants, and plants use the full PAR spectrum, keeping in mind that lumens are for humans. We don't see as much as the plants are using, and plants see more than our eyes do. So with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Damon now, who's going to share a little bit more about some pilots we've done.
Thanks, Eric. Really great intro. Okay, I think we've had enough motivation for the tech we've developed. So I'd like to talk about the greenhouse trials we've done in cannabis. Today, I'm going to highlight 4 different commercial cannabis greenhouses in which UV Grow was deployed over the past couple years. They're located in California, Oregon, and New Mexico. I would say overall across these trials and others like them, one trend is clear. UV Grow works great for cannabis. Each cannabis trial that we've done so far, our trial partners have achieved a strong yield gain ranging anywhere from 5 to 16%. So we'll go over these 4 examples we have on the next few slides. So this trial was completed in Trinity County, California, up in the Emerald Triangle. In this trial, half of the greenhouse was treated with UV Grow and half was not, as you can see in this panoramic photo. The trial was split east to west, and the center 4 sections here in the middle were omitted from the trial because there's crossover lighting conditions. That's typically what we do in our trials. Before we discuss flowering yields at this trial, note that the growers often report vegetative benefits, usually in the form of anecdotes rather than measuring actual vegetative size of plants. The cultivation team in Trinity County noted that the plants under the UV Grow showed obvious enhanced vegetative growth, exemplified by an increase in height, width, and overall foliage, filling more aisle space than their control counterparts. The growers also observed larger, fuller flowers on the test side, the film side. And of course, the quote here, it's night and day in there. And that you can tell that too when you walk in, you can really tell the difference. So let's talk about the harvest results in this Trinity County trial here. The first harvest was the light deprivation round, harvested in September. A total of 266 plants were inside the greenhouse. All the same strain, the indica dominant strain known as ice cream cake. The harvest showed a 5.4% increase in total dry yield. As we do with all of our trials, bud specimens from both sides of the trial were sent for cannabinoid and terpene testing. Total terpene content for flowers grown under Ubigrow came back slightly increased compared to those flowers grown under the control side by about 0.1% absolute increase. The total cannabinoid content was slightly reduced by about 0.8%. The second harvest was the full season round, harvested in November. There we had 248 plants, and those were split between two strains. About 80% of those plants were wedding cake, and the other 20% were ice cream cake. Both of these are broadleaf indica dominant hybrids, but there are slight differences. The wedding cake grows taller and exhibits larger internodal spacing. It also takes a week or two longer to finish. In this trial, we saw a harvest yield increase of plus 16% in total dry yield for flowers grown under the Ubigrow. The terpene content for the wedding cake was improved by 0.8% absolute, and the total cannabinoid content was moderately increased by 0.4%. The total terpene content for the ice cream cake was reduced by 0.2%, and the total cannabinoid content was moderately increased for the ice cream cake by 0.4%. So briefly on testing accuracy, the testing accuracy for terpenes and cannabinoids typically has an error bar around 10% relative. Therefore, these numbers are basically negligible within the testing accuracy on terpene and cannabinoid content for both strains. And that's typically what we see in most of our trials. And so I'll be sharing that with you on the other trials as well. But for the most part, we have not seen any effect on cannabinoid or terpene levels for any of our trials. So finally, what is the economic benefit of these yield increases? So we use inputs such as the realized yield improvement that you see above, 5.4% and 16%. We use the wholesale price of cannabis, and we use the gross margin on excess production. And that way we're able to calculate the value that the film brings to the farm. For the first harvest, the light dep harvest, where we got 5.4% yield improvement, the film added about $3 per square foot in extra revenue in just one harvest. And that figure is on par with its cost. Therefore, the payback time was just one harvest. For the full season, where we got 16% yield improvement, of course, the value is much higher. We got over $8 per square foot, almost triple the cost of the Ubigrow film. And here, of course, the payback time was even faster. You could consider it less than one harvest. Okay, similar to the Trinity County trial, we did a half greenhouse trial conducted at a rec facility in Hood River, Oregon, ironically very close to Eric's home. A total of 194 plants were monitored during the trial, and all plants were the indica dominant cherry chem strain. The cultivation team qualitatively observed that the plants under the test area were taller, they had tighter flowers, and overall they grew with more vigor. We harvested in October, and the result was increase in wet yields by 7.7% on the Ubigrow side of the trial. THC was modestly increased by 1.5% absolute, certainly within error of the testing accuracy. Again, we calculate the value that Ubigrow added in terms of revenue, and that was just under $3 a square foot, corresponding to a payback time of, again, one harvest. So next, I'll show this Santa Fe, New Mexico trial. That's pretty close to our headquarters. Here, Ubigrow was installed inside an entire 30 by 100 greenhouse rather than half of a greenhouse. It was installed over 4 different strains, and yields were compared to a neighboring greenhouse with the same orientation and same overall setup. Crops were grown from August to November, and plants were chopped and harvested and individually measured for wet weight. Yield results again were promising. We saw a plus 8% yield improvement across the 4 strains. And in general, without going into too much detail, I can tell you that sativa dominant strains among these 4 performed better than indica dominant strains. We're seeing a little bit of a trend across our trials with that. I wouldn't say it's completely established at this point, but we are seeing those lankier, longer, taller sativa dominant strains interacting more favorably with the red light. Again, crops were tested for THC potency, and no strain showed a potency change outside the normal testing variance. Per square foot, the film added $6, over $6 in extra revenue in just 1 harvest, over twice the film's cost. And the payback time, of course, less than 1 harvest. Finally, I want to highlight a recently deployed pilot in Portland, Oregon. This is something we're really excited about because it's the first large cannabis trial where we're exploring the interaction of Yuba with supplemental lighting. We've done some other trials on other crops and seen an enhancement, but this is the first one for cannabis with the supplemental lighting. So you can see the control on the right of this slide and the film installation on the left side, and you can see their installed lighting underneath the film. I wanted to show a couple more photos of this trial. So we did about 2,500 square foot on the install, and you can see the films are suspended above the deployable shade curtains by cables. You can see the line in the cable and the films right here. When I wanted to mention, when we install in this manner, the goal here is to get over 70% coverage. Yuba doesn't have to have 100% coverage to be effective. And the idea there is to leave some spacing for vertical airflow. We want the greenhouse to perform as it does normally in terms of temperature control, and this allows for that. So we're expecting the first harvest results in this trial very soon in November. It is a year-round trial, so we should be getting results every month or 2. Please look for case studies on our website soon for this Portland trial. But we do have a bit of an anecdote from the growers. They're seeing a visual difference, and plants are looking greener and healthier. They're calling it good stuff. So excited about that one going forward. So I wanted to kind of recap what we've learned today in the webinar. We're encouraging growers to think about leveraging their one free resource, their solar resource, and convert a lot of that underutilized blue and UV light into red light. More red, less blue, and also retain green light with our quantum dot film. Keep in mind that Yuba is a non-electrical alternative for light quality improvement. Of course, it works in conjunction with supplemental lighting, but there's a lot of growers who can't use extra electrical fixtures. They don't have the power at their greenhouse. Maybe it's remote location. We've worked with all types of greenhouses, so please give us a call if you're interested. We do custom design work and can get you a quote that's specific to your greenhouse. And I just wanted to highlight, the pilots that we've been doing are demonstrating this technology for cannabis. We're going to be launching some hemp trials in the next year as well to see if CBD reacts any differently. But so far we've seen repeated yield benefits and no significant effects on cannabinoid and terpene content. Finally, I just wanted to highlight the outstanding economics. Payback times are typically 1 harvest for cannabis, and that's even on the low end of yield improvement. So even a 5% yield improvement can be a very fast payback time. So I'll encourage you guys to contact Eric directly for a custom design and quote. His email's eric@yubagrow.com. And with that, I'll just thank everyone for attending today. We did also want to offer an exclusive webinar special here, 20% off any initial orders made before the end of the year. And of course, we always offer free custom designs. So even if you just want to kind of see how it would install in your greenhouse, we can mock that up for you and get you a quote. Finally, I will mention we're going to be at MJ BizCon next week, starting Wednesday. The booth number is on the screen there, C2324. Come by, say hi, grab some swag. We'll toss you some glowing sunglasses or even a swatch of Ubigrow that you can take home and check it out. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Damon. And also thank you, Eric. Appreciate both of y'all's insights and giving us a deeper look into Ubigrow and how it can help growers in the greenhouse. So gonna take a look here, see if we've got any questions popping in. Again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, just throw them into the chat here and we will take them as they come. And until then, though, we can kind of go into some of the frequently asked questions that we get on social media. We get a lot of engagement there and some good questions that might be helpful for the folks here on the call. Let's see, how about, so can I replace my greenhouse cover with Ubigrow? Damon or Eric, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. We get this question a lot, and currently what we have is a retrofit system. So our rolls are approximately 4 feet wide by just about any length we would need to do. So what we're selling right now and what we've got approved is definitely just a retrofit that would go underneath your existing greenhouse structure. This is something we're definitely looking at for the future, and it's a way we hope to expand. But as of right now, yeah, definitely not. We're just doing a retrofit under your greenhouse roof.
Cool, thank you, Eric. So also another question we've got coming in, is Ubigrow just a filter? Damon, do you want to take this one?
Sure, thanks, Charles. I think Eric talked about it a little bit, but yeah, a filter, of course, blocks certain colors of light, lets others through. Whereas a luminescent material, it glows. And what that means is it's absorbing light and converting colors from one color to another. And that's the magic of quantum dots, is that they're very, very efficient at absorbing colors and converting them. That's why you see them used in display technology. Blue LEDs drive quantum dots, and quantum dots transform them into other colors. And that's essentially what we're doing here, only it's large area deployment.
Okay, great. Let's see here. How long will Ubigrow last inside the greenhouse?
Yeah, I can jump on that one. So as you know, Ubigrow is a fairly new product. So it's something that we were estimating we can speed this up in the lab, hit it with extra UV and test it in the lab. We do know it should last 4 to 6 years in a greenhouse, but obviously the greenhouse environment is going to affect that and could alter that. You know, if you're keeping products clean and you've got a good clean environment that you're working in, maybe it could last a little bit longer. Just not totally sure on that, but really 4 to 6 years is a good estimation.
Okay, great. Yeah, that seems like a good amount of time to be increasing yields with that one-time initial cost. Well, I've got a question for y'all. Maybe Damon would like to take this. Besides cannabis, what other crops have we seen improvements in with Ubigrow?
Sure, thanks. So the major crops that we've done studies for are tomatoes, lettuce, strawberries. We've done a little bit of peppers and cucumbers as well. So those are, if you look up the major greenhouse crops, you'll find those listed. So we are trying to provide evidence for growers out there in all sorts of different greenhouse crops that this spectral control can work for them. That being said, we are launching pilots this year and next. We've done 25 different pilot locations so far all over the world in 7 different countries, 6 different US states, and yeah, constantly learning how we can improve lighting environments without the use of electricity.
Great. So variety of crops there. That's good to know that it works on vegetative crops as well as flowering and fruiting crops. So pretty diverse applications here. Well, I think we're not seeing any more questions pop into the chat. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody again for attending. Appreciate your time. And again, please contact Damon or Eric for a custom quote. And again, remember to mention this webinar and you can get a 20% discount through the end of the year. And visit UBAGrow at NJBizCon next week at booth C2324. So with that, we will wrap up and hope to see you again next time.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for hosting. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.